If you traveled back in time 2,000 years in your sleep and opened your eyes in ancient Rome, would you be able to adapt to the everyday life? For starters, if you weren't wealthy and didn't own a villa, you needed to use communal toilets, called latrines. These places were actually used for socializing, with one caveat: you had to use the communal sponges on stick named xylospongium. These were typically found inside pots filled with vinegar or salt water, and were used by everyone through the day. Or could you hold a conversation with your neighbor, knowing that they cleansed their mouth with urine as an herb? Or your wife could tell you to buy a face cream made from gladiators' sweat. Who would you want to be when you wake up in the ancient Roman Empire? A gladiator who cheats death daily for the amusement of a crowd, whose thirst for blood is never quenched? A slave who could be bought and sold like a piece of furniture, and who could only be freed by their owner or the emperor himself, an event that almost never occurred. A senator who commands the fate of legions while navigating a sea of daggers and whispers, knowing that one wrong breath could turn a loyal friend into a deadly executioner? A noblewoman who surveys a world of marble and dust from her sanctuary on the hill, draped in silk, yet bound by the golden chains of status that offers every luxury but the freedom to step into the streets below? What would the first sound you would have heard be? The shouting of a merchant? Or the sound of iron wheels echoing through the stone streets? With the first rays of morning light, the narrow streets would begin to come alive. The smell of warm bread from the bakeries would fill the entire neighborhood. But there's an important question here. What did the Romans eat in the morning? Large breakfasts like today? No. For most people, breakfast consisted only of bread, a few olives, some cheese, and a drink mixed with water. But did everyone wake up to the same morning? Absolutely not. On one side, there were the wealthy, who lived in houses with large courtyards. On the other hand, there were the people living in narrow, multi-story apartment buildings. And life in those buildings was harder than you might imagine. Water didn't reach the upper floors. The risk of fire was high. It was difficult to breathe in the summer. So what was the most interesting morning ritual in Rome? As the breakfast crumbs were swept away, a different sound took over. The deafening, rhythmic clanging of a city that never stopped building itself. If you think modern cities are loud, ancient Rome would have been a physical assault on the senses. In the prestigious districts, the stonesmiths and sculptors were already covered in white lung-clogging dust. Here is an interesting fact. We think of Roman statues as pristine white marble, but to a Roman, a white statue was unfinished. Sculptors worked hand-in-hand with painters to encrust marble in gaudy, lifelike colors. Reds, blues, and skin tones so realistic they were eerie.
Shaping the pots, boys? Yes, master. Mind the heat, the fire is hot.
Down in the Suburra, the blacksmiths operated in heat that would be illegal today. Roman smiths didn't just make nails. They were early masters of case hardening. They knew that by heating iron in the presence of charcoal, carbon, and quenching it in specific liquids, sometimes even using fermented urine for its nitrogen content, they could create a blade with a soft, flexible core and a diamond-hard steel edge. The clinking you heard wasn't just work. It was the high-tech metallurgy of the ancient world. While the smiths dealt in fire, the jewel makers dealt in microscopic precision. Did you know Roman jewelers were among the world's first nanotechnologists? They created the Lycurgus cup, a glass chalice that changes color from green to red depending on the light. They did this by grinding silver and gold into particles so small, 70 nanometers, that they couldn't even see them. They worked in cramped, high-security stalls, often using magnifying globes filled with water to see the tiny engravings they carved into gemstones. Gems so small they were often used as secret signet rings for spies. Many people would go to the doors of powerful people early in the morning. Why? Because it was necessary to connect with someone powerful to get support, find a job, or be protected. In Rome, Sometimes even a greeting could change a life. Then the city would flow to a single point, the Roman Forum. But the Forum wasn't just a square, it was the heart of Rome. In one corner, a court would be held.
Tuam scelus est manifestum. Non sum reus iudex. Satis.
In another, debt disputes would take place. In yet another, the public would listen to political speeches. And what was the most dangerous thing? A sword? No, saying the wrong thing to the wrong person. Because in Rome, every word could be heard. The temperature would rise towards midday. People would briefly seek shade. Lunch was very short, because the really important meal was in the evening. But the most surprising part of the day began in the afternoon. Where did everyone go? To the baths. Today we only think of baths as a place for cleansing. But in Rome, the baths were a social center. People didn't just bathe there. Business was discussed, gossip was exchanged, new news was learned. Perhaps the first information about the empire spread here. Did everyone swim in the same pool? No. Class differences were felt even here. Some went in and out quickly. Some stayed for hours. And as the sun began to set, the city changed again. Street vendors would shout one last time. Dinner was prepared. But why was evening so important in Rome? Because the meal wasn't just food, it was a display of power. The lavish tables laden with exotic flavors, fish, spices, wines, and long conversations. But for the common people, the evening was much simpler. Warm porridge, bread, and vegetables. But did Rome truly calm down at night? Not exactly. The area around the Colosseum and the main streets were still bustling. Oil lamps illuminated the streets. In the heart of the Roman world, the theater was more than entertainment. It was the living pulse of the res publica. Beneath these towering stone arches, the rigid social hierarchies of Rome were momentarily suspended in a shared breath of awe. For the everyday citizen, a day at the theater was a civic ritual. But the true incredible factor lay in the sheer scale of the spectacle. Imagine the scanafrons, the massive permanent backdrop, rising 3 stories high, draped in silk and gilded in gold. The plays themselves were marvels of ancient engineering. They didn't just tell stories, they built them. Using sophisticated trapdoors and hidden counterweight systems, gods would descend from the heavens, and beasts would burst from the stage floor. Some theaters even featured retractable awnings, known as the velarium, cooled by a mist of scented water sprayed over the audience. In Rome, the drama wasn't just on the stage, it was an immersive, multi-sensory triumph of the human spirit. But the narrow streets were dark, and darkness in Rome wasn't always safe, because another life began at night. Quieter, more secretive, more dangerous. While some people retreated indoors, others were still out. Guards, late returning merchants, and those who didn't want to be seen. Perhaps Rome's true face was revealed not during the day, but at night. Because this city was more than just a great empire. It was a giant living organism, hiding a different secret every hour. Thank you for watching our video. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel to support us. And let us know in the comments, what do you want to see in our next video?